Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your homeboy DJ Architect. I wanted to talk about something very serious that affects a lot of us, and many of us don't speak about it. If you're in a position of pain, anxiety, deep depression, and you feel like you want to commit suicide or hurt yourself, do me a big favor, please. Please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Be safe, stay alive, your family loves you.
Chapter 74.
You are now listening to the Chapter of the Architect with DJ Architect.
What's going on, my peoples? I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are safe. I want to welcome you guys to Chapter 74. In the studio with me today, I have my homeboy, Big Sherm. How you doing, Sherm?
Real good, man. How are you?
I'm doing, brother, I'll be honest with you. I've been struggling. Guys, I want to apologize for not coming out with a podcast as of recent. I think the last time we did one, Sherman, was in July with Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I was really struggling with putting this podcast out and coming out with I would consider my truth and talk about some of the issues that I've been having recently, which have bogged me down, and why I haven't done the podcast. Before I dive into that, once again, I want to thank you, Sherm, for taking time out of your day to be here with me today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Wouldn't miss it, man. It's a heavy topic, but it's super important. And since you're going through it right now, I think this is a really good time to talk about it. This is a good chapter.
Yeah, man. This is, guys, this isn't easy for me. Like I was telling Sherm earlier today, I feel like I'm about to take off my clothes and run naked through the mall.
Right.
In a position of really exposing myself into some real life situations that a lot of us don't really talk about. And we kind of keep this hidden because of the masks that we wear, whether it be in front of friends, family, or social media. There's always some underlying issues that we all have. Life isn't always perfect. And, we're going to talk about it today. Before we go into it, this has just been a bad year. Every day that I wake up in the morning, I thank God that he's giving me another day of life, and I say a prayer. But the truth is, 2020 has been a bad year. I want to give out some condolences to those who have lost family and friends this year related to COVID and not related to COVID. There's been many people that have suffered great losses this year, and I want to start off by giving condolences to my wife, who lost 4 family members this year.
Damn.
I want to give condolences, Sherm, to you and your wife, the recent loss that you guys just had. Antonio, good friend of ours of the podcast, Diamond Monsoprano, Julia, good friend Burgers, Celia, Elizabeth. Our hearts go out to Tony and Brett, 2 individuals that we know that are still with us, but were diagnosed with terrible diseases.
It's been a hell of a year for those guys. I couldn't imagine going through that. And for a lot of people, just like you said. That's heavy.
If I missed any other names, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. It's just so many people that have suffered this year. Once again, a good friend of ours, Raziel, who lost his father. And of course, how could I forget Spanish Fly? Rocky, big shout out to Rocky. We just lost Rocky in, I believe it was July.
Yeah.
And this individual we had on the podcast, a freestyle artist, and he was taken away from us, and condolences to his family due to COVID.
Props to him too, man. He documented his whole experience with COVID-19 on social media, starting from the day he was diagnosed, and we were all kind of following because I think he was one of the first of, somebody who we knew of. Well, me, I think, because I'm from the West Coast. You got hit a little hard with your people back east, but man, watching that was a big eye opener. I think there was a couple of times where he celebrated his recovery.
Right.
I mean, it was triumphant,
Right.
and to see him say he's got to stay in for a little bit longer just to be, just have the doctors nearby, and then have him go through it all again, but worse. And then finally, his demise, man, that was tough. And then his son had a heartfelt message for everybody, but he was really strong. The family's staying strong. But yeah, man, I was glued to that one for a month and a half, and it was every day you're just praying that guy would get better. And unfortunately he didn't. And that takes a lot, man, to I don't know, make it a point to document it all when, I know that can't be easy.
No, it can't, man. And listen, man, prayers to everyone out there that's going through this. I feel for you guys, man. I really do, man. A good friend, Soprano, lost his brother to COVID. His cousin recently passed away in a terrible car accident. And many, many prayers to his mother, who just came out of surgery. I mean, so he's going through it, man.
2020.
He's going through it. And
That's
a lot
insane.
of people are going through it. Condolence. I mean, my wife, man, 4 people in her family passed away this year. She's a trooper, man.
Hell yeah. To go through all that and then be in the state of like isolation that we're in right now, with everything, having to stay inside, having to stay away from family, loved ones. It's, I know that's got to be making the struggle so much more. And is that your case as well? As far as your PTSD, do you think isolation has not been a great benefit, or?
I would say so. But I think that was just the cherry on top. You know what I mean? The overall mass issues that I was going through, the isolation, it was. I can tell you it was.
I think it forces you to face certain issues.
I'll tell you what it did for me in the negative. Well, because I was forced to work from home, the studio guys where I'm recording this podcast right now is where I have my DJ equipment. I have all my microphones set up for recording and production, my mixer, my piano, my guitars. This is where I create. This is my place of tranquility, man. And then because I had to make this my office, all of a sudden it became a very toxic environment for me, to where when I would pass the hallway and look into my studio, my stomach would turn.
Damn.
So my home became my prison and a toxic environment for me. And, guys, when we would go to work, and of course we would complain about traffic, but in all reality, what I learned was that 45 minutes of traveling from work to home gave you moments of decompression. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, I didn't have that. I would just go downstairs, feed the dogs, sit down and sit in this toxic pool of what I just experienced at work. So, guys, we're going to rewind a bit. And obviously, as Sherm says, I have PTSD. I've been struggling with PTSD since 2003 after my first tour in Iraq. When I came back from Iraq, my first tour, I was going through a period where I was doing a lot of drinking, specifically the first days. And that's when I first met my wife. And she noticed what I was going through. And waking up in the middle of the night and it being 9 o'clock in the morning and having a bottle of vodka next to me. guys, it's not easy for me to tell these stories, but this is the truth. These are some of the things that I had to deal with and go through, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm not the first, and I guarantee I won't be the last. But I ended up getting orders to go to Iraq for my second tour. Immediately, I had a perfect circle on the right side of my head where I would get, my fade. And as much as I told the barber, hey, man, go as tight as you can with it, you could still see a perfect circle of hair not growing. And I thought maybe, possible wingworm, something like that. So I went to the doctor and I was like, hey, doc, I think I might have wingworm or something. And they ran their tests. Doctor came back. He goes, hey, that's not wingworm. He goes, have you received any stressful news as of late, or are you stressed out? And I said, well, I just got orders to go back to Iraq. And he goes, that's it.
Kidding me. I've heard you say perfect circle before, and I thought it was a metaphor.
No.
I didn't know you actually had a circle on the side of your head. That's crazy.
It's funny because many years prior, a cousin of mine who was going through a stressful situation at home with his family, specifically his mother, he got the same thing. And I never put it together with stress. I just felt, I was just looking at him like maybe he has some kind of, skin disease. I didn't ask him. I didn't want to embarrass him. But that's what happened to me. And then I got hair on my chest. And then half I think it was the left side of my chest, all my hair started to turn white.
You're kidding me.
It was crazy, man.
I've never heard anything like that.
It was crazy, but that is just the effects that anxiety have on the human body, man. It takes
Is that a
its toll.
hereditary reaction to stress?
I don't think so. I do have like a white strand of hair, like strands of white hair that are in the front of my head, and that I ended up getting that after my second tour from Iraq.
But that shit's dope.
I
That looks really
that.
It looks like you did it on purpose. And for many years, I thought this guy just dyes a chunk of his hair gray, but that's not the case.
And what's funny is that my barber would ask me the same thing. She would say, "Hey, do you dye that?" And I was like, "No." And I remember one time a guy asked me that.
Probably me.
No, it was somebody else, and I was like, "No, man." I said, "Who the hell?"
Who do you think you are?
I was like, I mean, what do you think, man? Do you think I really have time to sit there and put highlights into my hair? I was like, no, man. Look at me, bro. Get the fuck out of here, man.
Damn.
So, yeah, guys, I've been struggling with PTSD and depression and anxiety, issues with loss of memory, and insomnia for a long, long time. And, sometimes there's good days, sometimes there's bad days. But listen, this chapter, it's not about you guys having pity for me. I'm currently going through a bad moment in my life, but I'm going to pull out of it like I've pulled out of other events in my life. This one was just a huge, or is a huge one. And it probably took me back several years as far as the progress that I had accumulated with my counselor. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Sherm.
Would you say that this year is the worst out of the last 15 or so? I mean, is this...
This is as bad as 2003 and 2004.
That's crazy.
It took
so
me...
you went 10 plus years.
Coping.
Mm-hmm.
And having good and bad days with guys, help.
Good distractions, right?
Right. Help from my psychiatrist, obviously, some medication, sometimes self-medicating with alcohol. And then with help from a mental health therapist. So, there's things that I've done, and I will talk about, which have helped me cope with dealing with the issues that I have. But let's talk about what triggered this tremendous episode that I'm going through right now. You guys are probably aware that I started a new job this past January. And I will go into the details of what that job, the department is, but I will say it was responsibilities and duties of me having to review claims for veterans. Some of those claims were dealing with PTSD. So it was my responsibility to look and read detailed stories, information of veterans in a combat environment, reading through those details, investigating and confirming deaths of military members. And that is like putting an alcoholic at the cash register of a liquor store. Eventually, it's going to go bad.
Yeah.
And it did. It did. Very quickly, I started to have moments of anxiety. Then came the nightmares. And for a long time, I don't want to say a long time, I would say in a span of 4 weeks, I was trying to go under the radar and not let my wife know because I didn't want her to get worried of what was emerging and what was this feeling that was starting to snowball inside of me. And the moment that I had a nightmare and I'm screaming and she has to wake me up, I said to myself, fuck, now she knows. It's that like the cat is out of the bag. I can't hide this anymore. And guys, the reason why I was trying to hide it was because, as a man, prior, Marine, we suck it up is what we call it. You go through these moments and you tough it out and you say, you know what, this is just one of those phases that I'm going through with the PTSD. I'll give it some time. Eventually, I'll either become numb or I'll work my way through it. Somehow I'll work this out, but I have to continue to do what I do because, you got to pay bills, man.
Right. At the same time, do you see how keeping it to yourself probably made it worse? Or, was that the case or not the case?
Yeah, it did make it worse because now it became a process of a pressure cooker theory.
Yeah.
Where me keeping it bottled up and thinking that I could handle it on my own, it made me hang on to the live wire of electricity for way too long, and it burnt the shit out of me.
Yeah, for sure.
Do
you think a lot of veteran suicides would be due to the fact that these guys are trying to protect their family from their own demons and they're keeping it all to themselves? And, do you think that could be a large cause of not reaching out for help or talking to anybody?
That's a good question. And I really couldn't tell you. All I can say is and talk about is my experience.
Right.
I don't know what other people are going through it. And guys, when I really don't want to bring up stories like that. I know I've had podcasts before with guys that we did serve in Iraq with, but before we started those podcasts, I asked them not to go into details just because I didn't want anything of that nature to be recorded in time. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to actually go back, listen to the podcast with a being of happiness and a smile and just almost remember the good times. Unfortunately, and it's moments of some of those podcasts, the water did get muddy. And, that was their choice to go into that part of the story, and all I could do is sit back and listen, right? Maybe they needed to vent as well. And that's another thing I think why I'm doing this podcast, and once again, thank you for being here, is maybe it gives me a chance to vent and purge.
Right.
And If it helps out any veteran out there, then great. But, we go through life, like I said before, in social media, everything is great. Photographs at a vacation, photograph of a beautiful steak, photographs of the family, everyone's happy. But nobody wants to tell a story when they're down and out, or tell the truth of, hey man, this is a bad time for me. And not to say that I don't think it's something to celebrate, but I think it's imperative to reach out for help. Guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to give you an example of what I went through comparing. Well, before I even go there, my cousin George back in New York, I love him to death, man. He's one of the people that I reach out to on a constant, and he goes through his issues as well. And we were talking about, he gives me this link regarding complex PTSD. I had no idea what it was. I know of chronic PTSD is something that I have. And guys, chronic PTSD is it's a PTSD that lasts more than 6 months. And it comes back in cycles. Sometimes it's PTSD just doesn't go away. You just have to find ways to deal with it. So complex PTSD, what it is when you, and guys, when I say PTSD, this is just not for veterans. This is for anyone who is a civilian and who is listening. You can be on your way to work and see someone get hit by a car and die. Guess what? You have PTSD.
Sure.
That's going to affect you. So when I say PTSD, guys, it's not just for military members or veterans. This is for anyone that has a conscience and goes through a traumatic event.
I have a theory to that. I'm not speaking for all veterans, but we all join the military for our own reasons. Some are because you have a patriotic family that's had generations join the military, and you do your part, right? And others are people that come from broken backgrounds, right? They want to reset, and they don't want to stay and even try to mess with it, because now they're new adults, and so a lot of the time people make the decision to join the military to get a fresh start. And I think a lot of people that join the military, I'm going to say a lot. I wouldn't know the percentage, but I would just guess that there's a lot of PTSD going into the military. Before you even get a whole nother kind of PTSD, right? So I think that it's safe to say that it's a majority. I would almost say a majority of people that are in the military come from broken backgrounds where they've seen some shit within their own family or their neighborhood. Everybody's got a different, background, but I honestly think PTSD is alive, even going into the recruiter. You know what I'm saying? So to get your kind of PTSD on top of a PTSD that probably or could have existed, I think it's just a compound, one on top of the other. And I think it could be, there's something to that. You know what I mean?
Compound is a very perfect word to use for it. So let's go back to complex PTSD. I'm talking to my cousin, and I'm explaining to him how sometimes when you're in a situation as a child and you go through a traumatic event, like you were saying, within the family or within the neighborhood, that forms a development within that child, whether it's going to be negative or positive. And it does impact. Mm-hmm. Obviously, guys, I realize that probably 90% of the population have gone through some kind of traumatic event as a child. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to, okay, well, how do you deal with it? Right? You have to somehow cope with that and come out stronger at the other end. I think the issue is when you have gone through a traumatic event as a child, specifically when the trauma was induced by one of the parents at such a fragile moment in time where your brain is still developing. I mean, it causes a lot of issues. I know for me, guys, and here we go again. I had an abusive father, a very abusive father who would strike my mom, hit my mom. And at the age, I was maybe 6 years old, and I would try to intervene, and I'd get smacked in the face, and I'd go tumbling down the staircase. Now, a lot of people listening to this podcast, this might be the first time you guys will even ever heard of this, specifically friends of the family. But you know what? I'm not here to sugarcoat. All I'm doing is saying the truth. I'm not making up any lies here, guys. In some way, shape, form, or fashion, that have impacted me in a very negative way. But I'm okay. You know, I'm not listen, guys, this podcast is not a pity party for me. You understand? So please do me a favor. I love you, but I don't need or expect phone calls or text messages. This is just.
This is a dissection.
Yeah, man. I'm okay, guys. Thank you. You know, just send me well wishes through thought. I'll receive them. But please do not blow up my phone asking me if I'm okay. I'm letting you know I'm okay.
That's what he's got me for.
Right. So going back to, you know, the abusive father thing. Look, man, nobody talks about the abuses that happen behind closed doors. And guess what, man? I guarantee you my family wasn't the only ones going through some issues when we were kids. I guarantee you. And I'm talking about within our circles. But everyone, you know, they keep it to themselves. And, you know, the sad thing about this whole situation is that me and my father, at the age of 18, I'm physically throwing fists at this man's face, still attempting to protect my mother. You know, by that age. And I'm not saying it happened every single week or every single, you know, month. You know, but here I am, 18 years old, and my dad's starting to attempt to do this again. And I'm 18 years old, man. My brother's at work. Guys, I'm 18 years old. This is not going to fly today. I'm not 7 years old. And what happens? We get into a fight.
Can we touch on your background just a little bit?
Sure.
I mean, you've done, this is the 74th or 3rd?
Yeah, it's 74th, yeah.
74th podcast, and I'm pretty sure there hasn't been too much into, you know, where you come from, as far as your childhood and whatnot. Where do you come from, Carlos?
Well, born in El Salvador. My brother, who is 3 years older than me, was born in the United States, was back in the States with my father.
In New York?
In New York. And my mother went back to New York and left me to be raised with my grandmother for 4 years. And after 4 years, you know, I come to New York. I meet my new family. I meet my brother.
Kind of meet your mom too, right?
Well, you know what? I recall moments as a child that they would come to El Salvador maybe once or twice to see me. But, you know, you're 4 years old. What are you really going to remember? All I remember is them coming down and, you know, but you're a child. What real memories do you have? Got to New York. Our next door neighbor was Rodney Keynes. We became really, really good friends. But our neighborhood, you know, was pretty rough. And this is pre-crack era. So when crack hit, man, it became a volatile environment. But you know what? At the end of the day, man, we still had moments of happiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Within the turmoil.
Shit wasn't taken for granted. I mean,
no, man. I mean, my parents, as bad as I can and will talk about my father, I could also be honest and tell you the truths about his responsibility of him taking care of us. and being a working man, getting up in the morning and going to work and not calling off sick. So if I could talk bad about him, I could definitely be honest and talk the good things and the great things that he did for us and our family. But
What'd your pops do?
he worked at a factory where they fabricated. You ever see a halogen bulb?
Yeah.
The light, you ever see those plastic covers that go on top of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he would fabricate that.
Okay.
And my mother worked at a company called EZM where they fabricated medical equipment, such as, urine bags, blood bags, things of that nature. And
And what city were you
this
at?
was Westbury, New York, 11590, 272 Monitor Street. Man, we had a good childhood, man. A lot of it I hold dear to my heart. A lot of friends that I hold dear to my heart to this day that I love. A lot of good memories, man. But in reality, the environment really started to turn bad to a point where I remember we were talking about it on the podcast with my brother and Ray, where we were kids, man, and a block away, my mom had one of her friends, and there was a bodega that was a block away where we would always go get our eggs, our Goya beans, our, milk, Jamaican beef patties, Doritos, quarter waters. Ever so often on a Sunday morning, going to get a carton of eggs, the shopkeeper would be washing off blood off the concrete, because adjacent to the bodega was like a makeshift nightclub, like a legal nightclub. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then someone would always end up getting killed or stabbed or shot. And this particular Sunday morning, I forget the lady's name, but she had a son called William. William was the neighborhood seller for firecrackers and fireworks come 4th of July. Him and his brother, they would go to, who was older than him, they'd go to Chinatown. They invest and they come back around the neighborhood and they sell firecrackers to all the neighborhood kids. And, hey, Mom, I want 100 matte firecrackers and Roman candles. There goes your mom pulling out a 20. All right, go get it, right? So he was like making bank. I mean, obviously, eventually he got arrested. This is William. But his older brother, I remember this Sunday morning, man, it was early. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, man. And William's mom was beating on the door, crying that her eldest son had just got stabbed at the nightclub a block away from where we lived, and he managed to make it all the way, because they lived like a block further away from us, so they were probably 2 blocks away from the club, and he was able to make it to the front door, knock on the front door, and collapse, and he died on the porch.
Damn.
And I was a kid, man. This is like, I was maybe 6 years old, 5 years old when I remember this, So it was very treacherous, man, growing up in that era and in that area, man. You could walk down to go get some eggs, man, and end up getting jumped.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, let's fast forward. So when I was talking to my cousin George, I was telling him that, as a child, you go through these moments of high stress and these moments of trauma. And then as an adult, as far as for me anyways, I joined the military, and being in Marine Corps boot camp was another stressful environment. But I knew that it was a safe environment. You understand what I'm saying? Because it was a structured thing. It wasn't like being out in the streets of New York where nothing was guaranteed. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying...
Was that a selling point?
No, it was a selling point for me to be like, hey, man, even though you're stressed out, it's a controlled chaos.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And guys, I'm not saying that it hasn't or it couldn't happen, because in training, Marine Corps recruits have died. Mm-hmm. Many. Different circumstances. But, for the most part, it was a stressful thing. But, shit, how many people had graduated Marine Corps boot camp, right? Why not me? So that's what I went in it with. And it really didn't start getting bad until Iraq, man.
Why'd you join?
That's a good question. Ever since I was a kid, man, I always be the kid that I'd be in the backyard with a stick, makeshift rifle, creating booby traps. There was a garage that was adjacent to our house, and all the alcoholics, all the drunks would go back to that garage and piss. You know what I mean? So that was like one of my hiding spots when we go out there and play army and shit. So every time I went back there, it smelled like piss. So they're fucking pissing on my headquarters. I can't have that, right? So I create a booby trap with a shopping cart wheel, right? I use that as a pulley. I fucking, somehow the middle portion of the wheel, I wedged it down. I grabbed rope and I hammered it onto the tree above it. I created a pulley, and then the trip wire was below. The problem was that I grabbed a sack full of bricks. The problem was that the sack was too immediately underneath the pulley or the trip wire. I needed to put the sack 3 or 4 feet ahead of or behind the trip wire. So what would happen is I would trip it, and as the person kept walking, the bag would immediately fall down with bricks, and it would miss them because they'd keep walking.
You're like, I need military training, man. This ain't working.
But if I would have put the pulley 2 or 3 steps ahead, it would have fell right on their head, you know? So, guys, I was working at this. I was working at a candy warehouse, and I was 23 years old. Forgot the name. Over by Hicksville, by Cantiac Park. You guys remember Cantiac Park, where the pool was? And I always had the military in the back of my mind, like, hey, man, this is, this will always be your way out. And one day, man, I'm picking orders, for this candy warehouse. And I'm saying to myself, what am I doing here? You keep saying that you always have an out with the military, but I wasn't doing anything about it. I was out of shape. I was probably 210 pounds. And then, irresponsible, drinking 40s, barely knowing how to budget my money.
This is 18?
No, I'm 23, man. Living on my own.
When you joined?
No, yeah, 23 years old. Yeah, I was pretty old.
Yeah,
so
those
you
were
figure
senior citizens in boot camp.
That's the way they looked at me.
Yeah.
And, 5 years, I could have joined 5 years ahead of the time. And actually, I attempted to, but I failed the ASVAB. I failed the math portion of the ASVAB. I wasn't too bright when it came to math. And then after that, I was like, fuck it. Not really having the determination to study. So this one night, man, I'm drinking a 40 of Old English or Crazy Horse, which is even nastier. And I'm watching this movie called Patton, World War II movie with George C. Scott. And I'm like with the buzz of the 40, and I'm like all motivated looking at this army movie. I'm like, oh shit, man. And moments, maybe like 15 minutes into me watching, 20 minutes into me watching the movie, the phone rings, and it's the Marine Corps recruiter.
No shit.
And he goes, Carlos, are you ready? I said, when you want to pick me up?
Yeah.
Like it happened like that, man. And then there were other things that kind of made me want to scram New York. I won't go into the details of it, but it was just a accumulation of different things where the timing was right. The recruiter called me at the right time. Some other things that happened that I felt could come back and bite me in the butt, and I needed to split.
Oh, yeah. What year is this?
This is 1999. I went, took the ASVAB for a second time, failed it a second time. Math portion. Mm-hmm. Just was never good at math, guys. And then the recruiter said to me, he goes, hey, man, what do you want to do? You got to pass this portion. I said, okay. At the time, I didn't have a car. Something had happened. I think I was driving without insurance. So I was going through some shit, man. And I said, okay, look, I get out of work at this time in Hicksville. I'll take the bus from Hicksville to Hempstead. And do you got somebody that could help me out with this? And he goes, yeah, one of the pulleys is great at math. And that's what I did. I did it for like 3-4 weeks, man.
Nice.
Every single day I would go from Hicksville to Hempstead on the bus, and then I would probably be done by 8:30, grab the bus, go to Uniondale, and then walk like 5 blocks to go home. So I was exhausted.
Were you the lone wolf out of your crew to join? I mean, do you have any military folk?
I do, man. I do. My good buddy, Frank Arevalo, which I owe a lot to this guy, man. Because when my father and I got into our physical altercation, my dad chased me out the house with a machete. This is how ghetto this guy is. He chased me out the house with the machete, and I go down to Hempstead Turnpike. At the time, there was a Roy Rogers. Now there's a McDonald's there, and I call up Frank. I'm like, hey, man, Frank, I need you to come pick me up. He goes, what's up? He goes, I just fought my dad, punched him in the mouth. He ain't like it. He chased me out the house with a machete. But he was trying to hurt my mom, dude, so we weren't playing them games, you know? And he goes, all right, man, even though this was 18 years old, man. So technically, he doesn't have a car, so he sneaks the van out of his driveway to come pick me up. And I mean, so a big shout out to Frank Arevalo. So Frank actually joined the Marine Corps first, and then several years later, I ended up following him. And you know, we got stationed at Camp Pendleton for a very short time period, and it was great seeing him, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
So big shout out to Frank.
How much earlier did he
I'd say maybe 3 years earlier.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Where were you 9/11?
I was in Okinawa, Japan, with a good friend of mine, Miguel Ramos, which is Nocturnal Sun.
Right.
And he's from Yonkers, New York, from Long Island, New York. And I remember trying to utilize the phone, and you couldn't. All it was a busy dial tone. So I remember it perfectly. I mean, it was nighttime in Okinawa, Japan, and then you just see the planes hitting the towers, and then we're getting phone calls. Hey, you guys, pack up your stuff. We may be deployed because we're in 3rd Marine Division. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously we didn't get deployed, but we got orders to start packing up stuff. We didn't go until, several years later. But
what state of mind were you in then, being in the Marine Corps in Okinawa when the towers were hit? Like, what was your initial reaction, and what was your next day reaction?
My initial reaction was, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
Like, I thought, fuck, man, is the pilot's guidance system not working? Did he have a heart attack? Was it that's what I thought.
From the moment you heard it was terrorism.
Man, I felt anger.
Right.
I felt anger. I felt anguish for all the people that were in those towers, and and for their family, bro. I was in shock, but I also wanted to kick ass. You know what I mean? I was
That's your home, right? I mean,
somebody's got to pay for this.
It's all our homes, but that was your home.
Somebody's got to pay for this, man. And I think the feeling was mutual, man. And there were people there from Pennsylvania, from Los Angeles, and everybody was like, somebody's gonna fucking pay. Mm-hmm. Send us out there, God damn it! They're gonna pay. We were ready, man. And the next day, I think it seeped in, and everybody was just pissed. And I remember we did a PT run, and it was one of the hardest PT runs we did, man, because we were like, hey, man, if we're gonna go, we better be in tip top shape,
Right. That's what got me to the recruiter.
Really?
Yeah, I was there probably 3 or 4 weeks after.
Hey, man. Well, kudos to you, man. I know a lot of people join the military because of that, and I think that says a lot about individuals who do that, because there is no lying when it comes to individuals like that. Something happened. They felt a feeling strong enough to say, you know what, I'm going to make. And you guys might not have considered it at the time, but it was a huge sacrifice.
Like I say, though, I think it's a recipe. So it's, military was never anything I ever would have imagined getting into. I was running a warehouse at a golf joint, and we grew up in Oceanside, right? Mm. So There's a lot of, we didn't like Marines. We didn't like we didn't like anybody in our city, right?
I can imagine. You got a bunch of strangers in your city.
Right. So you are kind of, aside from family patriotism, you are, you look at those guys like they're just stealing our chicks, basically.
True that.
When I say recipe, I mean, if you are on the verge or you are teetering going, I do need a fresh start. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us would like to throw away our driver's license and find another one and just maybe pop up somewhere else. And that's kind of what the military did for a lot of us. You know what I mean? To where you could you could disappear, basically. That's what the military provided for me. And at the same time that was just the pushing, okay, towers are down. That's it. All right, I have made my decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we all need that moment of where we're standing on the edge and someone just kicks you in the ass. You're like, all right, thanks. Really, it's fucked up, but that's what I needed.
Right, but if I have aspirations to do something else, my childhood was just Jiffy or whatever. I mean, why would I go? I wouldn't go. I'd stick around where shit's going pretty nice. You know what I mean? And I would, I don't blame anybody that had, they were following their goals. You know what I'm saying? So they had goals set young. They did it. They are living it today. And I would never hold anything against, a lot of our elders.
Sure. Absolutely not.
There's a big group of baby boomers, that would look at people who didn't join as, lazy or
soft.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. We have smart
I agree.
individuals.
People are needed in other jobs.
That's right. You can't give up your
can't
dream.
Join the military. Why the Navy?
Because of the ports and stations. I mean, coast.
Good idea.
Right. So I wanted to stay close to the beach. And I looked at Army and Air Force. And I was like, I'm not going to Kentucky or Oklahoma or, some like...
I have a god brother who, Carlos Ayala, God rest his soul, who passed away in 2014. Man, I love this guy. And we all looked up to this guy, man. He's such a big heart. And I remember at 13 years old, I think I might have been in 7th grade, and I remember writing him a letter, and he had just got deployed to the first Gulf War. And I remember him writing me back, and he's telling me, he goes, hey, if you want to join the military, join the Navy. You're going to go and have the opportunity to go to different ports and different locations in the world. And he goes, if you want to fight, join the Marine Corps.
Right.
And that always stuck with me, man. And I always, and I'm not talking bad about any other branch of service, but as a whole, to me, I always thought the Marine Corps were the best.
They get the most respect for sure.
Yeah.
Even, as a sailor, everybody acted different when those guys walked in. That's just the way it goes.
And guys, there's a lot of you guys who are civilian may not know the jokes that are said about Marines. They say if you have a bunch of coloring crayons in front of Marines, that
gobble, gobble.
They consider that a snack. They're so stupid. But from what I learned, is you actually have to be pretty intelligent to be a grunt, to be a machine gunner, to be a mortarman, be artillery, and to call for fire. You can't be a dummy because you end up killing your own people. You really have to be pretty smart. So, guys, let's rewind a bit. So, going back to the situation where, as a kid, you go through these situations of stress and situations of trauma, and then you fast forward, and like you said, Sherman, you compound different other situations and different other traumas. So now, guys, I'm going to attempt to explain to you what happened to me. Imagine 2 vehicles are manufactured the same day. One vehicle is only driven on the weekends. The tires are rotated. Oil change is done when needed. It's in mint condition. The other vehicle is driven 400 miles, hits pot roads left and right. The tires are bald.
24/7.
There's no oil in the engine. Transmission's about to freeze. I mean, it's in bad shape. And fast forward that 20 years. What do you get? One vehicle still in mint condition, and the other one where the piston rod breaks and comes out of the block of the engine. Technically, what I'm saying is the engine seized due to it being revved and run so hard for so many years and having no oil and not being taken care of, really. That's what happened to me. I went into a situation where my nervous system just crashed. I'm broke because I had never really taken care of myself. And I'm in that process right now of recovery. And one of the hardest things that when my wife found out that I was going through this and she saw, oh man, this is bad. This is 2003 bad. Man, I love her so much because she automatically put herself in a situation where she said, okay, I got to get this guy out of this. And what she would do was on Saturdays and Sundays, she would say, okay, we're going to the beach, and try to put me in a position of relaxation. You know what I mean? And guess what, man? It worked.
Yeah.
For a moment. One of the last few times, and I'm at the beach, and I could no longer enjoy and take in the tranquility of where I was, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, man, tomorrow's Monday. I was like, oh, shit, man. And so like mid-August, I immediately called the VA and I was like, hey, look, I need to get a hold of my previous mental health counselor. I got to reconnect with her. Called up my psychiatrist. I knew how big the ball was starting to snowball, and I knew how fast it was going. Like it was going from 0 to 60 to 80, and I was like, holy shit, anxiety attacks. Oh my goodness, guys, and I don't want to get nasty or disgusting with it, but it would be 5 or 10 minutes prior to me logging in, and I'd have the runs. I have the shits 2 or 3 times, and my wife's like, what's going on? That's what anxiety will do to you, man. I recall one of the last days where I was like, you know what, this is it. It was a Friday, and I normally would look forward towards the weekend. And it was a Friday, and I'm just about to get off of work, and I feel this impending doom, like the ceiling was coming down on me. And I recalled, I realized that I was no longer looking towards the weekend. It was Friday, and I was already thinking about Monday, hoping that I didn't get another PTSD claim. And that's when I said, you know what, man, I'm in trouble. I'm in big, big, big fucking trouble. And I took days off, man. I took so many days off attempting to avoid the anxiety, attempting to avoid the PTSD claims, the production standards. I mean, it was just compounded. The error quality, systems they had, it was just overwhelming, man. And I think one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make, one of the most, was to call my supervisor and tell him, hey, I can't do this job anymore. Yeah, after that, man, I can't fool them anymore. I'm not flying underneath the radar anymore. They know, but it was so imperative that I told him that. And the moment that I told him that and that he was aware, he said to me, why did you wait so long to tell me? And he goes, why did you wait so long? I said, hey, man, I got to try to take care of business, man, And he goes, you'd be surprised how many people go through this specific thing, specifically combat veterans. As a matter of fact, several years ago, he had to take a month off because the job was that stressful. Whether or not he was a combat veteran, I don't know. I know he was in the Navy, but I don't take anything away from anybody. But it was needed, man. Like I had to do it. And the moment that I told him, there was a level of where the severity of the anxiety went down one level, and I was able to catch my breath. Like I didn't feel perfect, but I was able to be like, okay, that's the moment that I needed to catch my breath, man, because I was at that moment where something terrible was going to happen. I mean, more so where a situation where like I would have mentally been in a mental facility. It was that bad, or who knows? I was already starting to get chest pains, but it was that bad. Listen, guys, even though it's tough for me to say this, this is the truth. It's what I'm gonna tell you. It's the truth. This happened. It was one of the most difficult decisions I had to make, but it needed to be done. Now I'm in a situation where, I'm seeing via the phone my mental health counselor 2 times a week. I speak to my psychiatrist once a month. I'm nowhere near out of the tunnel, but I took the first step to correcting the situation, and the first step was pretty much telling my supervisor, "Hey, I can't do this job anymore."
It's a big step.
It's a huge step, bro.
That is a big step.
I'm gonna tell you, man. It takes a real big heart to make that decision happen, because, guys, look, and I don't recommend. I'm not stating that what's good for me is good for you. I am fortunate that my wife and I have some kind of reserves in the bank that could support us while I'm going through this time. But sometimes it's necessary in order for you to survive, man, and be able to get up the next day, man. There's an individual who I think is outstanding. And, David Goggins, I don't know if you know of him.
Yeah.
He's the former Navy SEAL. The guy's a fucking beast. And I listened to his podcast, and his book is off the fucking hinges. The guy's a goddamn monster. But sometimes that type of mentality is not warranted. Sometimes you really have to take care of yourself, man, in order to come back energized, to have that mentality. But if you are run down and and listen, everybody knows their breaking point. And I had just, for the first time in my life, I reached my breaking point where my nervous system just shut down. Never happened to me before. Even in 2003 and 2004, I was still able to cope. But in this situation, there was no relief. Why? Because it always took me back to a claim and me having to read the details of someone else's experience, me battling against the clock of having to produce so many claims per day, catching errors left and right. And all this amounted to it snowballed into a very bad place for me, man. And I had to hit the eject button before I hit the mountain. And, now I'm on the road to recovery, which leads me into my next thing, man, is don't be afraid to share the struggles that you're going with family and friends. And like I said, I love my wife for being my rock, man. And what she's done for me, and I'm talking about back in 2003 as well, man. Goodness, I owe her a lot. A lot. And that's why I appreciate people like you, man. Where I feel comfortable enough to where I can talk to you. And guys, if there are just certain people in your life that you just feel more comfortable having these conversations with. Why? Because they can relate, or because they've gone through a certain tragedy or a certain situation where they can relate. And at the same time, while they're listening to you, you can sit back and listen to them. And sometimes that's even more helpful, because now you're not focused on your own situation. Now you're focused on helping somebody else.
Yeah, I was in the Navy. I wasn't combat, but being in the military, it's put me close to a lot of people who were in combat, and I've had the privilege of being there for them. And I've worked with Marines very closely. I've worked on a Marine Corps base where they were my partners. I've lost a few great ones. And I've seen a lot get injured. I go golfing with guys that have some crazy PTSD, where there's been times where it's hard to even get through 18 rounds without something happening to them mentally, or 18 holes. So, I mean, yeah, firsthand combat, no, but I don't know. I feel like I have a pretty good insight on what's going on, just because these are all my homies that are going through some really hard times, and it's always really important to pick up the phone and call and do your rounds basically and check on your people. And man, it's tough. It's tough to hear. It's tough to watch you struggle, but at the same time, it's a blessing to know that you can call me, and I'm glad you can talk to me. If you couldn't, I would feel even more sick. So I'm glad that I am somebody who could pick up the phone. I can be here. I just recently moved closer to you, so that's cool. I could pedal my drunk ass down here and crack some beers. But man, I had one. It was 3 or 4 years ago. I was on social media and I saw a friend that I didn't really talk to that much, but we served together, and he went on to do. He went overseas in the sand, whereas I did not. But he had some issues, and he said some shit, basically goodbyes on social media. And I caught it, and it was early morning. I was about to go to work, and I couldn't get a hold of him after he basically said, "Peace out, world." I mean, his statement was pretty bold or rough or blunt. And so I called the suicide hotline, and they were just awesome. And I only had this guy's cell phone number that he didn't pick up. I had his social media. I said, "Look, it's not me. But here's the deal. I'm about to go to work right now, and I can't spend too much time unless I call off sick. And if you tell me to call off sick, I will. But I need to track down this guy's family right now. And I don't know if you guys can assist." So this guy stayed on the phone with me as I did my research. He did his, and he'd be like, "What about this? What about this? What about this city?" I didn't even know what city the guy lived in.
Oh, wow.
But at the end of about 2 hours of him and I putting our heads together, suicide hotline on the phone, we were able to track down where his mom lived, find out that he was living with her, and she was a vice or some, I don't know what she was admin at a high school or something like that. Authorities went in and grabbed her and said, "Here's the situation. Do you know where your son is?" And I felt like a narc, but because that's just that's what we feel like when we're calling and ratting somebody out,
right.
So this was really difficult. But authorities went to the school, took her out and said, "Do you know where your son is?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's at work." And she goes, "Well, or can we go and maybe talk to him?"
Yeah.
And they got him out, got him some help. I haven't talked to the guy ever since. I talked to his buddy who keeps in connection with him in Tennessee. I went and had lunch with that guy, and he told me that the guy got help, and he's good.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, suicide hotline isn't just for people who have a gun to their head.
Man, well, good for you, bro. Good for you for having the balls to do that, man.
Yeah, it felt weird at first. After you get a little bit of confirmation that it may have been for the best, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And when somebody's putting messages out like that on social media,
yeah,
they're asking for help.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, brother, obviously, just because you haven't been to combat, and this is for anybody too, man. This is for civilians as well. Just because you haven't been in combat, man, you go through your moments as well, don't you?
Absolutely.
What do you, if you don't mind me asking, what issues do you deal with?
Oh, I have a panic attack disorder. I have an anxiety disorder. Lots of that is from childhood issues. Even present family issues, marital issues, situations like that. Sometimes they keep me out of work. Sometimes they make it to where I have to lock myself in the shower. For some reason, that's kind of like a place where I can kind of reset But I usually, if I'm having some sort of panic attack, I will go into a shower, sit on the shower floor in the dark with some hot water, and deal with it.
No way.
And I haven't had that too much this year, surprisingly, but I've had it in recent years, and I'm not sure what has made it kind of made me do a little better. But anyway, I mean, yeah, a lot of people have panic attacks. We don't know what it stems from. A lot is hereditary. A lot is seeing stuff as a kid, or just going through the regular family stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And guys, for those who are listening, listen, man, we all go through some stuff. I don't think there's one person that we know personally that has not gone through some kind of trauma, some way, shape, form, or fashion. So, hey guys, it's not just us. I'm sure you guys that are listening right now have gone through something or are going through something, and you're not alone. I think at the end of the day, it's how you deal with it. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, even though I was very hesitant to do it, was, and listen, guys, I'm not some expert. I'm just telling you guys what I find that is working for me, even though I'm not out of the woods yet. But if there's something that I find that is helpful to me, and if I keep that to myself, I'm doing a huge disservice to anyone else who's going through the same things that I'm going to, and not spread out that information. I think it's selfish. I mean, we're here to experience and to learn, and if we keep that to ourselves when other people are in very bad shape and need that information, I think it's a huge slap in the face to people that need that help. I don't want to go to the grave with something that can help other people.
So what are you doing? What is helping you?
So, guys, what I'm doing right now is I'm not working, guys, which I come to find out is a whole different beast within itself, because now I'm into depression. The anxiety's still there, but now I'm going into a depression where, look, it's not normal for a person who's worked 20 years, 29 years, 30 years for all of a sudden find themselves not working. But, I think it's imperative that, for me anyways, that I find some kind of schedule to keep me busy, whether it's going outside and to the backyard and or going to the garage and cleaning and staying busy. So what I do is, in the morning when my wife wakes up to go to work, I'm out of bed. So by 6:30, I'm going for a walk. And I just got into meditation. And guys, I'm from the streets of New York, man, Westbury, New York, man. Who the hell would ever think that I'd be attempting to meditate? And to be honest with you, I don't think I do it correct, but what I come to find out is that there's different forms of meditation. There's the sitting form where you're sitting down and you're concentrating on your breath. And then there's other forms of meditation where you could be going on a walking meditation. And what I come to find out is meditation is really being aware of your environment, and more so being aware of your thoughts. A lot of times, and first of all, let me give a big thanks to my mental therapist, China Long. Oh man, she will bend her schedule left and right like a pretzel to accommodate me, man. So China, if you're listening to this one day, thank you so much for being there for me. I have a great relationship with her, man, and thank you, China, if you're listening to this. But look, guys, so in the morning, I go on this meditative walk. I come home, I feed the dogs, I try to stay busy. I try to dive into as many things, tools There's individuals that you could find on YouTube and, other websites. These professionals, they can help you. And I would advise you to seek professional help as well. But there's people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Esther and Jerry Hicks, Earl Nightingale, and Wayne Dyer. These individuals have so much knowledge and tips and experiences that you don't necessarily have to listen to one. You can listen to all four and take tidbits of each, and maybe that'll help you out. But what I have learned, Brother Sherman, is this. I'm at a moment right now where I could really take advantage and leverage the time that I have. Like before, I would go through therapies, all these different things, but I would never put the 100% effort. And the reason why is because I was always working a full-time job, so I'd be exhausted. And you know how it is. You used to work the same schedule, working a 13-hour job. You come home, you'd be exhausted. What real effort would you give in to rebuild yourself? Not a lot. You were exhausted. Now I have all the time in the world to really, even though I'm going through this turmoil, this is my opportunity to start rebuilding myself and really putting in the 1,000% effort to start taking care of me for the first time in my life and rebuilding myself to come out changed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take advantage of it.
Awesome.
I've come to find out if I don't take this time to take care of myself, how I'm going to take care of my wife.
When you had that joy of going to the beach and you said it died off because you were thinking about Mondays, is that something you can revisit now?
That's something I'm not going to revisit. And I think that's, don't get me wrong, I'm peeling back the layers of onion. Mm-hmm. But while doing it, I'm also learning. I'm also learning through the moments of depression and anxiety. You self-induce stress a lot. Mm-hmm. So it was impossible for me to leave that stressful environment. Why? Because I was always committing myself to it. It was like reopening the wound and constantly putting salt into it. It would never heal that way. So in order for me to start healing, I had to pull myself out of that situation, meaning I had to say, this job is not for me. That was step one. You see what I'm saying? There is no David Goggins, we're going to fucking muscle our way through it. No, man, not for this one. We're going to muscle through it, but in a different way. We're going to go deeper and come out stronger, but it's not this avenue of approach. So I had that was step one, was to pull myself out of that situation, to attempt to let the wound heal and not constantly put salt into it.
Right. I think you're smart to realize that Goggins won't work for everybody.
Absolutely not. I mean, guys, he's a motivating son of a bitch, and the guy is a monster and a beast, and I salute and respect him. And I utilize some of his, like his books for my own motivation. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes I'm on a run and I'm thinking about him, like, hey, man, another 5 minutes ain't going to kill you. And I'm just, and the thing is, I could barely run because of the injuries I have to my left ankle. So, but now the pool's back open. Hey, brother, so I'm in that son of a bitch for an hour,
nice.
Man. Like, here we go. Nice. Yes, this is going to, and that's another thing, guys, is exercise really reduces stress. Mm-hmm. It really does. Also praying, getting up in the morning and having gratitude and telling God, man, thank you for another day of life. And then looking at my wife and saying, you know what, man, thank you for sticking around me. I've been such a fucking douchebag and not giving you the attention that you warranted. And, I am really in the process of reconstructing and rebuilding myself. Like I said, guys, I'm not a master at this. I'm just starting off to learn, not even learning, attempting to do meditation, but eventually I'll get good at it. But what I am realizing is this. If you continue to think about the things that stress you out, you will continue to be stressed out. if you continue to think about the things that gave you depression, listen, these things are based off of memory, right? So if we keep reliving and replaying these memories in our mind, it's going to manifest that feeling. So the first thing that I've come to realize from these, these individuals that I named earlier on, Joe Dispenza and Esther and Jerry Hicks and Wayne Dyer and Earl Nightingale is, hey, man, number one, be aware of your emotion. Be aware of what you're feeling. Like, wake up. You wake up and you're depressed. Realize you're depressed. Okay, I'm depressed. Why am I depressed? Well, I know why I'm depressed. Well, I'm depressed because of a situation that happened several years ago or months ago or yesterday. Okay, if I keep thinking about that, I'm running a program that will be on autopilot if I let it. So number one, acknowledge your feeling. Okay, I'm feeling a certain way. I have anxiety. Okay, I have anxiety because of this. Okay, guess what, man? By you having anxiety or by me having anxiety will not fix the fucking problem. Mm-hmm. All it's going to do is induce more anxiety. So what do? You put a thought in your mind that's a positive thought to take you out of that negative emotion. And by putting, and don't get me, guys, don't get me wrong. It's not easy because we've been brainwashed and programmed for so many decades that, oh, woe is me. I was abused. I was smacked around. I was, I saw this. I saw that. I did this. I did that. And we have to break that habit. And it's hard because we've done it for so long. And sometimes we're driving and it's like a background music. It's playing and we have no idea, and we're subjecting ourselves to that emotion and we don't even know it. It's a program that's running and we're not even aware. So the moment you say to yourself, oh man, I have anxiety. Okay, cool. I realize that. Let me change the circumstances. Let's put a positive emotion into my brain. And that thought becomes emotion. Right. And then it's hard, but you just have to be conscious always of what you're putting into your thoughts. Do me a favor, man. You see that sticky note at the very top? Can you pull that down and read that? Yeah, and pull the other one too. These are sticky notes, and before I used to put like all these different things on my whiteboard, and these are like, little guiding things to help me out.
Be very careful of what you think. What you think is what you make real. I decided sooner or later I'd have to get over this. If not, it would kill me. I just pick sooner than later.
And guys, don't get me wrong. Once again, I'm not saying that I'm out of the woods, man, but I'm taking the steps, I believe, in the right direction to pull myself out. And if these things help you, then take them. The positive thought. Like I said, listen, guys, sometimes I'll be on autopilot and I'll induce a depressive mode or anxiety mode based off of, man, I hope this happens. I hope this happens. But we can't control that, man.
So between thinking about it and talking about it, I think talking is a remedy for thinking. VFWs, man. VFWs and, different organizations where people get together just to talk, right? I mean, that's where the VFW can be a beautiful thing. Not always, because most of the time you're getting shit-faced, but... my dad utilized VFW forever, and it was a place where he could go to people who understand him and his problems. And he's there right now, I promise you. Guy bought a house right next to his VFW, so he could walk to it. And that's his shrink. Beer's always been his shrink as well, but so now he goes and drinks beer with other combat vets, and they have each other. And he didn't talk to me about the shit. You know what I mean? Because and I don't blame him. He doesn't talk to people at his work who were not veterans or could not relate, or he didn't want to put that on somebody that hasn't been there, right?
Because they look at you like, what do you want me to do? I don't.
But I still think if you have a friend or family member that is obviously offering an ear, use them. Definitely take their hand, and don't feel like you have to be like, well, they won't understand, or I don't want to put this evil on them. If that person is volunteering themselves because they want to help you, because they care about you, I think you got to use it. I agree. And so, yes, I think thinking about it, that is something you want to cancel out, right? And talking about it will help that. Other activities like what you're doing with swimming and walking and meditation, great. But I just don't want anybody to think that talking about it is something you need to not do. Like, talking about it is different than just thinking and wallowing about it by yourself in your own four walls.
Yeah, listen, don't take what I'm saying as a blueprint that it will work for you, because I just want to reach a moment of tranquility and peace and maintain that for as long as I can, through how many hours I can of the day, and then subsequently have it bleed into the next day. And if I can do that, then I'm achieving my moment of peace and tranquility, man. Because you know what? At the end of the day, that's really all I want. Money, possessions, you can't take that to the grave with you, man. There was a gentleman that I met at the pool, and him and we spoke previously. His name is, goodness, man, Jamie, Caucasian elder individual from Africa. I thought he was from Australia because of his accent. We're in the exercise pool, and we're just walking, like running, walking in the pool. And I noticed he had dog tags, and him and we had spoken previously, years before at the pool, but we never really got into a conversation. And then he sees me, goes, "Hey, I remember you." I say, "Hey, what's going on?" Obviously, we didn't know our names. We were never, we never introduced each other. And I said, "Hey, boss, I've seen you here, since I started swimming here 3-4 years ago. My name is Carlos." And, he introduced himself. Like, "Hey," I said, "you have dog tags. You prior military?" Obviously, yeah. And he started telling me that he was a first lieutenant in the Vietnam War in the Army. And, I told him, much respect. And, I gave him all these accolades because those guys went through a brutal time, man. Bro, he just starts pouring out. I'm just sitting back listening, man. And he's telling me, "Yeah, you have no idea of what it is to be in 1 second in combat, and the next moment you're not." And I'm just letting him purge, bro. Sure. I'm not,
right. Good for you.
Right. I'm just keep going at it. And then, I said, "Hey, there was a pause, and I said, 'Hey, man, thank you for your service. I'm a previous staff sergeant in the Marine Corps.'" And he came up to me, and then he goes, "Fuck COVID," and we both shook hands, And, we spoke for about a good 45 minutes. I said, "Okay, Jamie, I got to go. I got 2 basset hounds at home waiting for me." And then I'm getting out of the pool, man, and he comes and he follows me to where I had my bag. He's still in the pool, and I'm out, on top, getting my gear. And he goes to me, "Carlos," he says, "I appreciate you. I hadn't talked about Vietnam in the past 20 years.
Oh, shit.
And he says, "This was such a helpful thing for me. Thank you." And I said, "No, thank you."
Tearing up.
Thank you, because what you just did for me was give me a moment of peace of what I was going through in my mind, and I was able to sit back and listen to you. So thank you for giving me a moment of tranquility and allowing me, for you to open up to me. Bro, like sometimes God puts people in people's path for a reason. And I'm not saying that I'm going to become best friends with this gentleman, but I'm going to see him again. But the next time I see him, I'm going to shake his hand and be like, "Hey, man, thank you for opening up." He didn't have to. But guys, what I'm saying is, this, once again, is not a podcast for veterans. This is a podcast for human beings. If you could be a lending ear to somebody who is in need, please do it. And if you are going through some kind of turmoil or trouble, call somebody. And if you are my friend, and if I know you, and even if I don't know you, get a hold of me. Put a comment down below on this podcast, man. Reach out to me. I have no issues with taking some time to be there for somebody, because God knows how many people have been there for me, countless individuals, and they given me great advice. And, if myself or Sherm could do that for other people, by all means, man, let's help each other out. We're all human beings. We're supposed to be here to care for each other. And guys, please take care of yourselves. Be specifically safe with this COVID. This thing is dangerous. It's dangerous. It's taking lives. Isolation of working from home. Listen, guys, it'll catch up to you. Keep that in mind. So have things happen within your family to break that monotony, and talk to your spouse. Don't be afraid. Like, I was trying to hide it from my wife, and then finally she found out. And the best thing that could have done, I should have came to her from the beginning and spoken to her. She helped me before in the past. Why would she not help me again? So just take care of yourself, guys.
And you're not weak, man, if you go to therapy.
Absolutely not.
Therapy is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is. And once again, guys, listen, if you have suggestions to help that have helped you out, please comment below. It'll help somebody else out. Please share. If you need someone to talk to and you don't feel that you can call someone, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Sherm, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that's it, man. I mean, that was the point I just wanted to hit, was therapy. I mean, I'd love to. I've had my own issues in the last couple of years, and I wouldn't have been able to get through it if I couldn't talk to a third party. And that's, we choose who we talk to. You could talk to family members and friends, or you could talk to a third party that has no interest in your politics, or they're just there to lend an ear. They're not there to really give their opinions, but just give kind of helpful instruction on how you can better yourself. And that's about it. Right.
And guys, the beautiful thing about talking to a therapist is that's their occupation. So, we all have unique situations, but I guarantee you they're going to have tips that are going to help you out. And they're professionals. So don't be afraid to seek professional help. And whatever tools that you can put in your toolbox to help you out, use them. Like, really give them a chance. Try them out. Work them. Do the work. I'm sure you're going to come out a better person. And if it doesn't work, try something else. As long as it's not putting your life in danger and it's not putting you in a more dangerous situation. And we got to help each other to pull ourselves out of this dark hole, man. I love you guys. Please be safe. Hopefully I can come out with another podcast here very soon. But if not, you guys hopefully understand why. And I'll keep you guys updated. I love you guys. Once again, this has been Chapter 74 with my great friend, Big Sherm. Love you guys. Be safe.
Peace. DJ Architect.